The laughter came from everywhere at once. Lieutenant Dara Singh walked through the curved halls of Harmony Gate Station, and every alien species she passed found something funny about her. The tall, blue-skinned Velthari delegates pointed at her uniform. The insect-like Kreth clicked their jaws in amusement. Even the gentle, feathered Fenari looked away with something like pity in their large eyes. Humanity had been part of the galactic community for 40 years. In that time, they had learned one truth above all others. Nobody respected them. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition had been called because of a simple demand. The Velthari Dominion wanted 3 human colony worlds. They called it administrative reorganization. Everyone else called it what it was: conquest. Ambassador Kura Okonkwo stood before the circular chamber, surrounded by representatives from 200 species. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes, but her voice carried across the massive room without effort. "We reject the Dominion's terms," she said. High Arbiter Salvan rose from his seat. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like polished stone and 4 arms that moved with terrible grace. The Velthari had conquered 30 star systems in the last century. They had never lost a war. "You reject?" Salvan's voice was like grinding rocks. "Little species, you do not seem to understand your position. We are not asking. We are informing you of what will happen." Okonkwo did not step back. "Then we request the right to demonstrate our defensive capabilities before any decision is made. This is allowed under coalition law." The chamber erupted in noise. Some delegates laughed. Others simply shook their heads. A Velthari officer standing behind Salvan made a crude gesture that needed no translation. Salvan held up one hand, and silence fell. "A demonstration?" He smiled, showing rows of black teeth. "By all means, Ambassador. Show us what humans can do. We could use the entertainment." In the back of the chamber, a small Fenari named Trill watched everything with nervous eyes. He had studied humans for years. He had read their history, their literature, their science. And unlike everyone else in this room, he was not laughing, he was afraid. 3 hours later, Dara Singh stood in the weapons bay of the ESV Relentless. The ship was old by human standards, built 30 years ago when Earth first realized that the galaxy was not a friendly place. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it carried something special. Chief Petty Officer Bruno Reyes walked up beside her. He was 60 years old, with hands scarred by decades of maintenance work and eyes that had seen too many funerals. "They're expecting energy weapons," he said. "Lasers, plasma, the usual." Singh nodded. "They're going to be disappointed." She looked at the weapon before her. The Mk7 railgun stretched the entire length of the bay, a massive tube of electromagnets and reinforced steel. It did not glow. It did not hum with power. It was simple, brutal, and very human. "How fast?" she asked. 0.08 c, Reyes said. 8% of light speed. 20 kilograms of tungsten moving faster than anything in this galaxy has any right to move. Singh touched the cold metal. "My brother was on the survey ship they destroyed. 2,000 people. The Velthari called it an accident. I remember. They never apologized." Captain Yuki Tanaka's voice came over the intercom. "Lieutenant Singh, report to loading position. The demonstration is in 6 hours. Admiral Yun wants everything perfect." Singh walked to the ammunition storage. Inside, rows of tungsten slugs sat in perfect lines. Each one weighed 20 kilograms. Each one was polished smooth, shaped to penetrate anything in its path. They were not elegant. They were not advanced. But energy dissipates. Mass at velocity does not. She lifted one slug and carried it to the loading mechanism. Tomorrow, the galaxy would watch humans fail. They would laugh and point and mock the primitive species from the edge of known space, or they would learn why humanity had survived a world that killed 99% of every species that evolved on it. The loading mechanism closed with a heavy click. In her quarters that night, Singh received a message from Trill, the Fenari observer. It was short. "Lieutenant, I have studied your world. I know about your predators, your diseases, your natural disasters. I know that your ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. The others think you are weak because you have no claws, no armor, no venom. They do not understand. You are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy, and tomorrow they will finally see it." Singh read the message twice, then deleted it. She slept well that night. better than she had in years. When morning came, she was ready. The Velthory had positioned sensor drones everywhere, eager to record humanity's humiliation. Coalition ships gathered at safe distance. High Arbiter Salvan watched from his flagship, already composing the surrender terms he would force upon Earth. None of them knew what was coming. Singh loaded a single slug into the chamber and whispered to herself, "For everyone who said we weren't ready." The countdown began. 17 years ago, a human survey ship called the Dawn Seeker entered Velthory space by mistake. The navigation error was small, just 3 light minutes beyond an invisible border. The ship carried 2,000 scientists, engineers, and their families. They were mapping a nebula, dreaming of discovery, hoping to find something beautiful in the darkness between stars. The Velthory destroyed them in 9 seconds. No warning. No communication. Just a wall of plasma fire that turned the Dawn Seeker into scattered atoms. The Velthory later called it an unfortunate navigation accident. They offered no apology, no compensation, no explanation beyond a single statement. Trespassers face correction. Lieutenant Dara Singh's older brother had been on that ship. Now she stood in the weapons bay of the ESV Relentless, watching Chief Petty Officer Bruno Reyes run final checks on the railgun. The weapon stretched before her like a metal spine, silent and cold. Unlike the flashy energy weapons that aliens favored, this thing had no glow, no dramatic sounds. It was just physics made brutal. "Tell me about it again," Singh said. Reyes smiled. He loved this weapon the way some people loved their children. The MK7 railgun uses electromagnetic acceleration to push a 20-kilogram tungsten slug down a 300-meter barrel. By the time it exits, that slug is moving at 8% of light speed. Do you know what happens when something that heavy moves that fast? Destruction. No, Lieutenant. Destruction is what happens when you drop a bomb. This is different. This is physics removing something from existence. The kinetic energy converts to heat and force so fast that the target doesn't break apart. It vaporizes. Shields, armor, reinforced hulls, none of it matters. You cannot stop mass at velocity. You can only be in its path or not. Dr. Amara Jallo entered the bay, holding a tablet filled with calculations. She was the ship's physicist, the woman who had helped design the targeting systems that made railguns accurate across millions of kilometers. "The demonstration target is ready," she said. "Asteroid designation Theta 97. 3 kilometers in diameter, roughly the size of a Velthory heavy cruiser." Singh nodded. "And the observers?" "Every major species has ships in position. The Velthory have deployed 12 sensor drones. They want to capture every angle of our failure." Jallo paused. "They're also broadcasting to 47 star systems. Half the galaxy will be watching." "Good." Captain Yuki Tanaka entered the bay. She was a quiet woman, the kind of commander who never raised her voice because she never needed to. Her presence alone demanded attention. "Lieutenant Singh," she said, "Admiral Yun has given final authorization. 1 shot. Make it count." Singh looked at the ammunition rack. 48 tungsten slugs waited in perfect rows. Each one represented countless hours of mining, refining, and precision manufacturing. Each one was a promise. "Captain," Singh said, "why did we never develop energy weapons like everyone else?" Tanaka considered the question. "Because we're from Earth. We evolved in a world where everything was trying to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, each other. We learned early that survival means using what you have, not what looks impressive. Energy weapons are elegant. They're efficient, but they dissipate over distance. They're affected by shields. They require massive power reserves." She touched the railgun's barrel. "This just needs electricity and something heavy. We found tungsten. We built magnets. We made the simplest, most brutal weapon possible. And no one else thought of it. Other species evolved on gentle worlds. They had millions of years of peace before they reached space. They developed weapons for hunting, not for war. By the time they needed serious firepower, energy technology was advanced enough to seem like the obvious choice." Tanaka smiled slightly. "They never imagined that someone would be crazy enough to throw rocks at 8% of light speed." Singh loaded the slug into the chamber. The mechanism sealed with a satisfying click. "The Velthory think we're primitive," she said. "The Velthory think a lot of things. Tomorrow, they'll learn that primitive and effective are not the same." That night, Singh sat alone in her quarters, looking at a photograph. Her brother smiled back at her from 17 years in the past. He had been an astrophysicist, always excited about the next discovery, always believing that the universe was full of wonders waiting to be found. The Velthari had taken him away in 9 seconds. She put the photograph down and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the galaxy would watch a demonstration. They expected failure. They expected to laugh at the primitive humans with their simple weapons and their desperate hopes. They were wrong. Singh thought about the slug sitting in the chamber. 20 kilograms of tungsten, shaped by human hands, powered by human ingenuity, carrying 40 years of frustration and grief and rage. The Dawn Seeker had been destroyed without warning. Tomorrow, the warning would finally come. And after that, no one would ever underestimate humanity again. 217 ships hung in the darkness of Zone Theta 9. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Velthari warships with their curved hulls and glowing plasma cannons. Fenari science vessels covered in delicate sensor arrays. Kreth carriers that looked like floating hives. Coalition observers, neutral traders, journalists, diplomats. Everyone wanted to watch humanity embarrass itself. High Arbiter Salvan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Will. His 4 arms were folded across his massive chest, and his black eyes watched the human vessel with open contempt. "Look at it," he said to his officers. "One ship, one primitive, ugly ship, and they think they can threaten the Dominion." The ESV Relentless floated alone, 30,000 kilometers from the target asteroid. It was a gray vessel, built for function rather than beauty. No elegant curves, no intimidating weapons arrays visible on its hull. Just metal and engines and a single long barrel that most observers assumed was some kind of sensor equipment. Admiral Yun's voice came over the open channel, broadcast to every ship in the zone. "This is Admiral Yun of the Earth Defense Fleet. We thank the Galactic Coalition for this opportunity to demonstrate our defensive capabilities. In accordance with Coalition law, we will fire a single round at the designated target. All ships are advised to remain at minimum safe distance." Salvan laughed. "Minimum safe distance? From what? A chemical rocket?" His officers joined his laughter. Across the zone, similar sounds echoed through alien vessels. The Velthari sensor drones moved closer to the human ship, eager to capture every detail of the coming failure. On the Relentless, Lieutenant Dara Singh sat at the weapons console. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. 17 years of waiting had led to this moment. "Railgun charged," she reported. "Targeting solution confirmed. Ready to fire on your command." Captain Tanaka nodded. "Admiral Yun, we are ready." "Fire when ready, Lieutenant." Singh looked at the targeting display. The asteroid was 3 kilometers wide, a chunk of rock and ice that had been drifting through this system for millions of years. In a few seconds, it would cease to exist. She pressed the firing button. There was no dramatic beam of light, no visible projectile, no sound beyond a deep electromagnetic hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. The railgun simply did what it was designed to do. It accelerated 20 kilograms of tungsten to 8% of light speed and sent it into the void. The slug crossed 30,000 kilometers in 0.7 seconds. What happened next made the galaxy fall silent. The asteroid did not crack. It did not shatter into pieces. It did not break apart like every other target the Coalition had ever seen destroyed. Instead, it simply vanished. One moment it was there, 3 kilometers of ancient rock spinning slowly in the darkness. The next moment, there was nothing but an expanding sphere of superheated plasma and debris. The kinetic energy released was equivalent to a 50 megaton nuclear explosion. The shock waves spread outward, pulverizing smaller asteroids within 500 kilometers. Sensor arrays across the zone overloaded, trying to process the data. Ships that had been floating too close were thrown aside by the force of expanding gases on the Dominant Will. Every alarm screamed at once. Salvan gripped his command chair as his vessel rocked from the distant shockwave. His officers stared at their screens in disbelief. "That's impossible," one of them whispered. "Our shields couldn't stop that. Nothing could stop that." Observer Trill watched from his small Fenari vessel, his feathers pressed flat against his body in instinctive fear. He had known this was coming. He had studied human weapons, human history, human psychology. But knowing and seeing were different things. The humans had just erased an asteroid the size of a warship with a single shot. Admiral Yun's voice returned to the open channel, calm and measured. The ESV Relentless carries 48 rounds. We have 19 ships in this system. Every ship in the Earth Defense Fleet is equipped with similar weapons. Our larger vessels carry railguns capable of accelerating projectiles to 15% of light speed. He paused, letting the silence stretch. The Velthari Dominion has demanded 3 of our colony worlds. We would like to offer a counterproposal. Leave us alone. Do not threaten our people. Do not enter our space without permission. In return, we will continue to seek peaceful relations with all species. Salvan's hands were shaking. For the first time in his 200-year life, he felt something he had only ever inspired in others: fear. This is a declaration of war, he snarled into the calm. The Dominion does not negotiate with High Arbiter. Admiral Yun interrupted. We are not declaring war. We are showing you why war would be unwise. You have seen what one shot can do. Imagine what happens when we fire all 48. Imagine what happens when 19 ships fire together. Imagine what happens to your homeworld when our fleet arrives. The channel went dead. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the recording of the demonstration. They watched the asteroid vanish. They ran the calculations. They understood, finally, what humanity had been building for 40 years. The primitive species from the edge of known space had just announced itself to the universe, and the universe trembled. 47 star systems received the broadcast within hours. By the end of the day, the number had grown to 300. By the end of the week, there was not a single inhabited world in the galaxy that had not seen the footage. The asteroid vanishing. The plasma cloud expanding. The calm voice of Admiral Yun explaining exactly what humanity could do. Ambassador Kura Okonkwo stood before the Galactic Coalition for the second time in 3 days. But this time, no one was laughing. The chamber was chaos. Delegates from dozens of species shouted over each other, their translators struggling to keep up. Some demanded that humanity be declared a galactic threat. Others called for immediate alliance. A few simply sat in shocked silence, still trying to process what they had witnessed. High Arbiter Salvan rose from his seat, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. You see, he bellowed. This is what we warned you about. These humans are savages. They build weapons of mass destruction while pretending to be peaceful explorers. They must be stopped before what? Okonkwo's voice cut through the noise. She was small compared to the alien delegates around her, but she did not flinch. Before we defend ourselves? Before we refuse to surrender our worlds to your dominion? You have revealed yourself as a threat to galactic peace. No, High Arbiter. We have revealed that we are no longer victims. Okonkwo stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Salvan. For 40 years, humanity has been mocked, dismissed, and ignored. Your dominion destroyed one of our ships and killed 2,000 of our people. You called it an accident. You offered no apology, no compensation, nothing. You expected us to accept our place at the bottom of the galactic order. She paused, letting her words settle over the chamber. We did not accept. We could not accept. So we built weapons that would ensure no one could ever threaten us again. Not you. Not anyone. Grand Mediator Solène moved slowly from her elevated platform. She was ancient, even by galactic standards, a tree-like being who had governed the coalition for 300 years. Her voice was like wind through leaves. Ambassador Okonkwo, the coalition understands humanity's grievances. But surely you must see that weapons of such devastating power cannot be allowed. Okonkwo turned to face the mediator. Where was the coalition when the Dawn Seeker was destroyed? Where were the sanctions, the investigations, the consequences? The Velthari have conquered 30 star systems. They have enslaved billions. And the coalition did nothing because the Velthari were strong and their victims were weak. The chamber fell silent. Humanity did not want this. Okonkwo continued. We wanted to be explorers, scientists, dreamers. We reached for the stars believing we would find friends, allies, wonders beyond imagination. Instead, we found a galaxy that saw our kindness as weakness and our hope as foolishness. You made us into this. Every species that dismissed us, every power that threatened us, every voice that said humans were too primitive to matter. You all contributed to what we have become. Observer Trill rose from his seat in the back of the chamber. His feathers were bright with nervous energy, but his voice was steady. The Fenari Consortium moves to void the Velthari ultimatum. We further move to recognize humanity as a sovereign power with full rights and protections under coalition law. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Fenari were not a powerful species, but they were respected. Their support meant something. Other voices joined in. The Kreth abstained, but did not object. Several smaller species threw their support behind humanity, grateful that someone had finally stood up to the Dominion. The vote was called. Majority in favor. Salvan and his allies stormed out of the chamber, their fury radiating from every step. As he passed Okonkwo, the High Arbiter leaned close. This is not over, human. Your kind has made an enemy today that you cannot imagine. Okonkwo met his gaze without fear. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and each other. We will survive you. Later that evening, Grand Mediator Solen requested a private meeting with the ambassador. They walked through a garden on the station's outer ring, surrounded by plants from 100 worlds. You have won a great victory today, Solen said. But I must warn you, some species will now fear humanity more than they ever feared the Dominion. Fear leads to desperate actions. We know, do you? The Velthari will not simply accept this humiliation. They will strike back, probably soon, probably hard. And when they do, other species will be watching to see if human weapons are as effective as your demonstration suggested. Okonkwo nodded slowly. Then we will show them. Back on the Relentless, Lieutenant Singh received a coded message from Fleet Intelligence. Her blood ran cold as she read it. The Velthari fleet was mobilizing. 200 warships, gathering at the edge of human space. They were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to destroy. Singh closed the message and began preparing for war. The Velthari came with everything they had. 200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They filled the sensors of the human fleet like a wall of death, their plasma weapons already glowing with deadly energy. Fleet Master Corvin commanded from the largest vessel, a dreadnought called Eternal Conquest that had never lost a battle. Against them stood 19 human ships. The battle would later be called the Engagement at Silent Reach, though there was nothing silent about it. It began the moment the Velthari arrived, with Corvin's voice booming across all frequencies. Primitive creatures, your demonstration means nothing against true numbers. Surrender now, and we may spare your colonies. Resist, and we will burn every world you have ever touched. Admiral Yun's response was simple. All ships, weapons free. Lieutenant Singh sat at her console on the Relentless, her fingers dancing across the controls. The targeting computer fed her data on enemy positions, velocities, shield frequencies. She processed it all in seconds, her mind working faster than she had ever thought possible. First volley ready, she reported. 12 targets locked. Captain Tanaka's voice was ice. Fire. Across the human fleet, railguns discharged simultaneously. 12 tungsten slugs screamed through the void at 8% of light speed. The Velthari had time to see them coming on their sensors. They did not have time to do anything about it. 12 cruisers died in the first 3 seconds. The slugs punched through shields designed to dissipate energy weapons. They punched through armor meant to withstand plasma fire. They punched through reactor cores and crew quarters and command bridges, converting solid matter into expanding clouds of debris and fire. Ships that had taken years to build ceased to exist in heartbeats. Corvin watched in horror as his formation lost a dozen vessels before anyone could fire a single shot. Spread out, he screamed. Minimize their targeting solutions. All ships attack. The Velthari responded with overwhelming firepower. Plasma beams lanced across the battlefield, finding human ships with deadly accuracy. The frigate ESV Courage took 3 direct hits and broke apart. The destroyer ESV Defiance lost its engines and began drifting, helpless. Energy shields on human vessels flickered and failed under the sustained assault, but the railguns kept firing. Singh worked her console with desperate focus, calculating trajectories, adjusting for enemy movement, finding the gaps in Velthari formations. Every shot that missed was a slug wasted. Every shot that hit was another enemy ship removed from the fight. Hull breach on deck 7, someone shouted behind her. Seal it and keep fighting. Tanaka ordered. The Velthari heavy cruiser broke through the human line. its weapons carving into the transport ship HFY Hope. Singh watched the Hope explode, taking 400 crew members with it. Rage surged through her, but she forced it down. Rage made you miss. Rage got people killed. She targeted the cruiser that had killed the Hope. Her finger touched the firing button. The cruiser vanished. They're adapting, Chief Reyes reported from his station. Spreading out, trying to make individual targeting harder. Singh nodded. She had expected this. Load fragmentation rounds. The Mk7 could fire more than solid slugs. The fragmentation rounds were designed to split into thousands of smaller projectiles before impact, creating walls of hypersonic shrapnel that could shred multiple ships at once. Fragmentation loaded. Fire. The round left the barrel and separated into 12,000 pieces, each one still moving at a significant fraction of light speed. The Velthary formation that had been spreading out to avoid concentrated fire flew directly into a cloud of death. 7 ships died. 3 more were crippled, but the Velthary kept coming. A dreadnought. Not the eternal conquest, but close enough. Pushed through the debris field, its shields absorbing hit after hit as it closed on the Relentless. At point-blank range, the enemy captain believed the humans could not target effectively. He was wrong. They're too close, Tanaka said. Can you hit them? Singh looked at her display. The dreadnought was inside minimum targeting range. The railgun could not traverse fast enough to track it, but the slug did not need to travel far. Vent atmosphere in sections 4 through 7, she said. What? Trust me. Tanaka hesitated for half a second, then gave the order. Alarm screamed as emergency bulkheads sealed. The outer hull sections opened to space, creating a clear path through the ship's own structure. Singh fired. The tungsten slug traveled through empty compartments where crew members had stood moments before. It exited the Relentless through the vented sections and crossed the 300 meters to the dreadnought in an instant. The enemy ship's reactor went critical. The explosion was bright enough to blind sensors across the battlefield. Direct hit, Singh whispered. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 61 Velthary ships had been destroyed. The human fleet had lost 3 vessels completely, with 7 more badly damaged. Fleet Master Corvin ordered a retreat, his remaining ships jumping to faster than light before the humans could finish them off. His final transmission was recorded by every sensor in the system. This is not over. Your kind will burn. Singh collapsed at her station, blood running from a wound she had not noticed receiving. Shrapnel from an earlier hull breach had cut her arm open to the bone. She had not felt it during the battle. Now she felt everything. Captain Tanaka helped her to the medical bay. You did well, Lieutenant. We lost good people. We did. But we won. Admiral Yun's voice came over the fleet-wide channel, tired but triumphant. All ships. The enemy has withdrawn. Secure from battle stations. Begin rescue and recovery operations. He paused. They know what we are now. All of them. There is no going back. Singh closed her eyes and let the medics work on her arm. The galaxy had learned its lesson, she hoped. 6 months after the Battle of Silent Reach, the galaxy looked very different. Lieutenant Commander Dara Singh stood on a hilltop overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching the sun set over water that had witnessed millions of years of human history. Behind her, the Earth Defense Academy stretched across the California coastline, its halls filled with a new generation of warriors who would carry humanity's legacy into the stars. She had been promoted twice since the battle. The scar on her arm had healed, leaving a thin white line that she sometimes traced with her finger when she was thinking. Her brother's photograph still sat on her desk, but now it was joined by other pictures. Her crew, her friends, the ones who had survived. Commander Singh. She turned to find a young cadet standing at attention. He was barely 20 years old, eager and nervous in equal measure. At ease. What is it? The Fenari ambassador has arrived, ma'am. He's requesting to see you. Singh smiled. Observer Trill, Ambassador Trill now, had become one of humanity's closest allies. His support in the coalition chamber had opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed forever. She found him in the Academy's visitor center, his feathers bright with the colors of greeting. He had learned human customs well. He offered his wing in something close to a handshake. Commander, it is good to see you. And you, Ambassador. I heard the news about the Dominion. Trill's feathers shifted to darker shades. Yes, High Arbiter Salvan has been deposed. The civil war continues, but the reformist faction is gaining ground. They blame Salvan for awakening a threat they could not defeat. We never wanted to be a threat. I know, but you are one now, whether you wanted it or not. Trill looked out the window at the sunset. Many species have requested alliance with Earth. Some because they genuinely wish for friendship. Many because they fear what happens if they do not. Singh nodded. This was the reality they had created. 40 years of being dismissed and ignored had ended with a single shot that made the galaxy tremble. Now humanity had to figure out what to do with the power they had claimed. The next morning, she stood before her cadets in the main lecture hall. 200 young faces looked up at her, waiting for wisdom from a woman who had vaporized enemy ships with nothing but physics and determination. The railgun is not a weapon, she told them. It is a promise. It says to the universe, we will never be victims again. We will not start wars, but we will end them. We will not threaten, but we will defend. Every time you load a slug into that chamber, you carry the weight of that promise. She paused, looking at their young faces. Some of you will never fire a shot in anger. I hope most of you never do. But every day you serve, every patrol you fly, every time you stand ready to protect our people, you are keeping that promise. The galaxy knows what we can do. Your job is to make sure they never forget. Ambassador Kura Okonkwo arrived on Earth later that week for the Galactic Armistice Summit. For the first time in history, alien leaders were traveling to humanity's homeworld. Grand Mediator Solène made the journey, her ancient form moving slowly through the gardens where Okonkwo had arranged the meeting. Your world is beautiful, Solène said. I understand now why you fought so hard to protect it. We would have fought for any of our worlds. But yes, Earth is special. They walked past a memorial wall where the names of every human lost in the Battle of Silent Reach were carved into stone. Solène paused, her branches rustling thoughtfully. I must confess something to you, Ambassador. The Coalition always knew humans were dangerous. We could see it in your history, your biology, your psychology. We hoped to contain you through politics, through economic pressure, through keeping you dependent on galactic trade. Okonkwo said nothing. We underestimated your resolve. We thought that if we made the path to power difficult enough, you would simply accept your place. Instead, you built weapons that could crack planets and waited for someone to give you a reason to reveal them. What happens now? Solène turned to face her. Now you must choose what kind of power you will be. The galaxy will follow your lead, one way or another. You can be conquerors, like the Velthari. You can be isolationists, hiding behind your weapons. Or you can be something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. That evening, Singh and Trill sat on the Academy hilltop, watching the stars emerge one by one. Do you think peace is possible? Trill asked. Singh considered the question for a long time. I don't know. The galaxy spent a long time treating us like prey. It's hard to trust beings who saw your kindness as weakness. And yet you are trying. We have to. The alternative is becoming the thing we hated. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, species we've never met are watching the recordings of our demonstration. They're running the calculations. They're asking themselves what kind of beings create weapons like ours. What would you tell them? That we did not want this. That we built these weapons because we had no choice. That we hope we never have to use them again. Singh smiled slightly. And that if they ever threaten our people, they will learn exactly why humanity survived a world that was trying to kill us from the moment we evolved. Far above Earth, the ESV Relentless orbited in silence. Its railguns were cold. Its crew was at peace. But in Bay 7, 48 tungsten slugs waited in perfect rows, a reminder that humanity's voice now carried the weight of stars on a distant world at the edge of known space. A species that had never met humans watched the footage of the asteroid vanishing. Their scientists ran the calculations again and again, unable to believe what they were seeing. Their leader asked a single question. What kind of species makes weapons like that? The answer came from the broadcast. They call themselves human. They come from a death world on the edge of the galaxy. The narrator's final words echoed across the chamber. And they are no longer asking for permission.